We're here talking about coming to America. All right, so we're looking at the long-awaited sequel to the 33-year-old classic, Coming to America, and we have the second installment to what I think is the greatest comedy of all time, at least one of them, and it's one of the most immensely quotable movies that you could ever see. At one point in time, I could probably pretty much quote every word in the movie line for line. Probably could have recited the movie from beginning to end when I was a kid, but your brain doesn't retain that stuff like it once did. Brain's a sponge when you're really young, so at one time I could quote the whole movie, or probably not now, though I remember most of the quotes as I'm going through it. So I would say that this second installment of Coming to America, the movie was fairly good. It was a fairly good movie, but it's not great. And there are a number of points of what's good about it and what's not so good about it. Um, it was an entertaining movie, but it wasn't all that it could be. So let's go through some of those points and some of the things that we liked and maybe that didn't like so much. I'm going to start with some of the solid points. Start with the fact of them getting all of the old cast back together, including even Louis Anderson, who was just a waiter in the restaurant at McDowell's in the first movie. Now he's in the second one, and he's at McDowell's Zamunda as the opening of that operation. Even he got in on the second act, even with as small of a role as he had in the first one. All of the side characters that Eddie and Arsenio did in the original are in the second one, and they turn out to be some of the funniest moments were with a lot of those secondary characters that Eddie and Arsenio dress up as. So that was really good that those were back. The nostalgia of it all is wonderful, of course, and they made a lot of nostalgic plays in the movie, so a lot of fan service. Um, some people think that's the most horrible thing that you ever could do, but basically, fan service is like customer service, giving customer service in a movie, giving the fans what they want. So that's good. Too much of it, I guess, could be a problem in certain movies, but for one that's just a non-serious comedy, uh, it's okay. You don't have to worry about servicing the plot line as much as you would maybe in a more serious film. Wesley Snipes being brought in as General Izzy, he provided a lot of the rest of the good comedic moments. His performance is as well as you would expect Wesley Snipes to be. He's kind of a funny antagonist to Hakeem as the king, and it's a good addition to the film and a good addition to the roster. All of the royal daughters, especially the oldest one, Miss Princess Mika, are very charming. That was a very good part of it, and I think the same could be said for the royal barber. I have to look at her name, Mirimbe. I think is how it would be pronounced. She was very charming as well. So that's the good. As for the bad, there are a number of things that we could point to there as well. One of the important cast members was missing because she's no longer with us, and that would be Madge Sinclair, who played Queen Aeolion. Remember how to pronounce it from the original, from Mr. McDowell trying to say it. I'm trying to think of his real name, John Amos. Aeolion. Aeolion? Yeah, Aeolion. Queen Aeolion, she passed away at age 57, about 7 years after the movie. We think due to complications from leukemia. She had leukemia since many years before the film and was able to continue her career for a good many years after that. But she couldn't be a part of the movie, obviously, but they did show a picture of her and reference her in the scene with James Earl Jones. Another missing member from the film, unlike the first one, which couldn't be avoided, is the character of Patrice, Lisa McDowell's sister. You know, she was on the couch. She had a number of very funny moments at the game, putting her hand under the coat of Hakeem, the coat on Hakeem's lap, uh, and there's a number of funny moments with Lisa on the couch. Uh, she was a really good character. She didn't make it into this film. We're not sure why. I couldn't find any information. Doesn't seem anybody knows for sure. Heard there was a little bit about maybe she didn't get along with the cast. She had another movie she was filming about the same time. You think she would have that this job would have been more important, taking precedence over that one. But who knows why she wasn't? She just wasn't there, and that's too bad. Would have liked to see her make a reappearance. A number of the other points that made the movie not so great is it didn't have the comedic flair of the first one. A lot of the gags were kind of rehashes of what happened in the first movie instead of having new things that would have surprised us. So obviously, when we saw the royal cleaners, we knew what was happening there. When we saw Leslie in the bathtub, it was no surprise when the dude poked his head up from the water. You knew that was coming. It was fine for it to be there, but the fact that there weren't any of those type of gags, there weren't too many of those added to the film uh, to enhance it. A lot of the scenes seemed rushed. They didn't stick with the scenes long enough to really get in, really allow things to develop from one movie, from one kind of scene to the next, or from one kind of plot device to the next. Some of the other things that I think probably weren't so great was just the storyline wasn't what I would. Let me get into that a little bit later. I didn't care for the character who played the prince. I didn't connect with the main character or the what they tried to. Eddie Murphy is still the main character, Hakeem, but then his son, Prince Lavelle, I think is the name. Yeah, I didn't like the person, and yeah, just wasn't a good character. Wasn't a compelling character. Wasn't a funny character. Wasn't a helpful character at all in my opinion. I would have used them in a different way, which I'll talk about in a minute, as I would talk about what I would have done with the film. And then, yeah, just it was a lot of kind of um, references to different pop culture things, which were kind of cool. It had Salt and Pepper and In Vogue in there doing "What a Man," um, in reference to that's kind of like the not the wedding song, but the pre-wedding party song for the prince as he was getting married, I think. And but like it was like a lot of these little just quick references. They weren't really built into the movie. It didn't flow into the film all that great. Um, so there was all that. What I would have liked to see with the movie, and the other bad thing about it was they did not spend much time in America. It's called Coming to America, but the film was barely transpiring in America. Almost all of it happens in Zamunda. They have two sets of scenes where Hakeem comes to America twice, and it doesn't stay there long, especially the first time. It's another case. He goes by the barbershop. The interaction with the characters, mostly of Eddie and Arsenio, made up as the other characters. It's funny again. Again, one of the best scenes in this movie, as it was in the last one. The difference about the last one is there were a dozen and a half best scenes. There were those scenes in the barbershop were as funny as anything else in the movie. But there were a bunch of scenes that were funny throughout the movie continuously. This in this film, that part was really funny, and then the rest of it, not so much. A lot of the rest of it wasn't. He quickly finds his son. Somehow, the people at the barbershop knows his son is down at the stadium hawking tickets at that very moment. He finds him too quickly and easily. You wish that there would have been more that would have gone into him having to find his son. That would have been a lot more interesting. Having Hakeem spend time in America again. But the fact that Lisa didn't go with him, I thought that would have been cool to have Lisa go back to her stomping grounds, go back to Queens, where she was from, now as the Queen, and kind of have some interactions there. I think that was a missed opportunity. But what I really would have done with the film, instead of made it about this guy from Queens who they just met being brought to Zamunda to become the king, and having this kind of subtext of the Princess Mika being upset that she wasn't chosen because only a male heir can sit on the throne and not a female heir. It would have been a more interesting movie, and would have given it a lot of opportunity to be in the same vein and in the same feel as the first movie. Is if instead of them having to go find their son in America, it would have been if they already had an eldest daughter, and then they had the prince as the son, and the eldest daughter was going to get skipped over for the to become the royal to get skipped over for the throne, and by getting skipped over from the throne, she was upset by that, and then she traveled to America to kind of find her own way in life and decide that she didn't want to be a part of the royal family anymore. She makes the decision to come to America to eke out her own life. Maybe she has some career aspiration to be whatever. Pick your choice: an architect. She could have come to be a dancer. She could have come to be whatever she wanted to be. And then she comes to America and interacts with this new place that is different from where she's from, the same way that Hakeem did in the original. And then you could have had the same kind of uh, comical repertoire of him, where Hakeem was really awkward and they just didn't understand what was going on. And I watched the football contest last night and saw an oblong ball made of pigskin. Like all those kinds of things where he was just weird about stuff because it was different than what he knows and understands in life. Is a lot of what made Coming to America funny. Um, and so you could have had that same situation and that same affect with this movie using Princess Mika, because I thought, like I said, I thought the actress who played her is very charming. I thought that would have been really good. It would have been really fun, and you could have had the same give and take with the first movie. She could have, go to Queens because that's where her mother's from. So that would have been her reason for going to Queens, kind of going back to her family's homeland. She could have gone to McDowell's to end up working at McDowell's because that's her granddad's restaurant. She could have ended up at the same barbershop that Hakeem was at, so you could still interact with those characters. She could have still interacted with the Reverend who's in Queens, played by Arsenio, which was in the movie again. In the second one, which was pretty good. That was pretty good moments with him again. Could have again, but all that could have been so much more funny. Could have been funnier, and you could have had all kinds of just new shenanigans with her in America. Then you could have had Hakeem coming to chase after her. Hakeem and Lisa coming back to America to chase after her, just like his parents came for him in the original one. So you have the parallels of everything that happened with Hakeem in the first movie now happening with his daughter in the second one. And that would have made for a much better movie. Again, the prince, he just was an unlikable character. Uh, he wasn't funny. He had a real prima donna type of attitude. He's like one of these dudes out here with, oh, you disrespect me. He's like real feminine acting, and as soon as he overheard the general, played by Wesley Snipes, saying something to Hakeem about how shrewd of an operator he was to bring his son to marry the general's daughter to for political purposes or whatever have you, without even talking to Hakeem. Hakeem didn't say that. The other guy said that. He just gets an attitude and gets on his period and runs back to America. And yeah, I didn't like that character at all. He just did nothing. Um, so I think there was a lot of opportunity for the movie to be really funny. I think it was pretty good anyway. It was constantly entertaining. The movie moves, it keeps moving, so you don't have those lull drags. It was a good spectacle visually. Pretty good movie, but not nearly all that it could have been. It was okay. It was pretty funny, but the last one was just uproariously funny, and it was kind of a missed opportunity in that respect. But it felt good to see all of our favorite characters back again, to have all the interactions, to see where things ended up, and yeah. So I don't really give ratings on these. I'm just kind of giving my thoughts and opinions. It's worth the watch, but don't expect anything amazing for the second time around. We still always have the original. We still always watch that. Again, it's immensely quotable. It's forever funny. Never stops being funny. 30 years later, probably more than 30 years. Yeah, a little bit over 30 years later. And well, that's it for this review. See you next time.